So, Chairman Hochberg, we, among other questions, have been speaking about EXIM's mandates. So we have mentioned the green energy mandate, the renewable mandate, sub-Sahara small business. But you also have guidelines on high carbon intensity that many have dubbed the no coal rule. In the bank's press release dated December 12, 2013, you said, quote, "I strongly support the administration's efforts to build an international consensus such that other nations follow our lead in restricting financing of new coal-fired power plants." Now, as opposed to your other mandates, the no coal mandate, Congress did not vote on that, correct?
Congress voted on an environmental standard that was put in 23 years ago into our charter, sir.
Okay. Well, where did the no coal policy come from? Because you were the one who announced that on December 12, 2013. It had not previously been imposed, correct?
We actually support coal mining equipment. We support coal exports. And we support coal-fired power plants in poor countries.
Well, in poor countries, but in other countries you do not. So I understand the asterisk, but the bottom line is you and I assume your board unilaterally made the decision not to support the other coal-financed projects, correct?
The board reviewed it, and over time—
Did Congress vote on it?
Congress voted an environmental standard. The bank—
So that's where you draw your authority from.
The bank was sued under the Bush administration for not applying the environmental standard sufficiently, and in a consent decree—
I know there's lots of groups that sue frequently, so I understand that. But the bottom line is Congress did not pass a standard to prohibit you from financing coal-fired projects.
Congress passed a statute that we had to take the environment into account, and we were sued because—
Okay, so you also talked about this leads to a question of balance, I think is the word, yes. You said, quote, "The bank engages in an important balancing act in supporting our exports, weigh potential impacts of the environment associated with our financing." So if you and the other board members decide to do another important balancing act, you can make other decisions, for example, to have a no petroleum policy, I assume. I understand what Congress passed with their renewable mandate, but that's not the mandate we're talking about, is it?
Well, we actually support the oil and gas industry. It's one of our largest—
No, but you could make the decision based upon the earlier authorization, and as you've decided to essentially do a no coal policy, you could make the decision to do a no petroleum policy.
We don't have a no coal policy, sir.
Okay, with the exception of poor countries. How about a mostly no coal policy? The bottom line is Congress didn't authorize it, Mr. Hochberg. You decided to do it.
Well, Congress put it in our charter 23 years ago. The bank was sued before I got there, and part of the consent decree before I got there was—
Okay, well, again, you were the one who came out with the statement, so I'm just asking you to think about this particular hypothetical. Coming from Texas, it could be that November after next, maybe that we are, at least in my state, celebrating the election of either President Perry or President Cruz. And say we appoint a new head of the EXIM Bank and new board members. At that point, I assume nothing would prevent that head of the EXIM Bank, given the authority you have assumed, to say that EXIM Bank can no longer offer assistance to build any clinic that intends to provide abortions. Under the same authority, I assume then the bank could decide it will no longer provide assistance to countries that limit Second Amendment rights because maybe somebody sued the EXIM Bank. Maybe they decide that they will no longer extend credit to countries that have debt to GDP ratios worse than ours, although I don't think there's many on the list at the moment. So again, this is not a congressional mandate. This is one that you and the board decided to do, and I just wanted to point out to all members that once EXIM assumes this authority, it's Katie bar the door on self-imposed mandates of political lending, ideological-based lending, and that can cut both ways. And that's the main point I needed to make.